Someone has come out and exposed himself as an Epstein Island employee. I stumbled across this Epstein sub on Reddit and found this post a couple days ago that says, "Personal driver of Jeffrey Epstein and other elites tells all." I stumbled over this. I do not know anything about the Clover Chronicle. Use your own discernment. Details. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Confessions of a Dead Man. Personal driver of Jeffrey Epstein and other elites tells all. This was posted July 3rd, 2020. Just hours before Ghislaine Maxwell, the alleged sex trafficker and abuser in league with Jeffrey Epstein, was arrested by the FBI. A distributing confession appeared on a popular image board that is oftentimes used to outlet for whistleblowers and leakers due to its anonymity. In the multi-post confession titled "Storytime with the Dead Man," an alleged professional driver and security guard meticulously describes the inner workings of not only Epstein's sinister lifestyle, but other elites as well, including both politicians and well-known celebrities. This post says, "We have omitted some of the names and other information that appeared in the posts, but I'm going to be reading the uncensored version. Note, we are unable to verify whether or not any of the following claims are true. We are only providing this information since it relates to the current event, i.e. Ghislaine Maxwell's arrest. Also, some may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised." Now what will be following is me reading the entire 4chan post. It's a doozy, there's some crazy things in it. I've already read it once, so I know the entire thing. Is it plausible? Yes. Is it believable? Also yes. Tons of the information seems well crafted and seems like you'd have to know a lot of weird things about a lot of different people to even put this story together. So let's get into the post. Storytime with a Dead Man. I'm going to kill myself tomorrow. I'm also sending 3 packets of copied information to the media. 1 to CNN, 1 to MSNBC, and 1 to Fox. You will all have to see which one tells the truth about the information they received and who doesn't. I trust 4chan to do this because our history of releasing legit info in the face of mass media cover-up. I have been a professional driver / security guard for a circle of very wealthy people for almost 8 years. I started by working the door at a private gentleman's club outside of the DC area. From that job, I was introduced to some employment managers from Jeffrey Epstein. Because I had experience as both a cab driver and a bouncer, as well as always overlooking and keeping my mouth shut about drugs and prostitution, my employees at the club profited from. They thought I'd be a good fit to work for the weekends for Mr. Epstein. At first, I didn't do very much. Definitely nothing important. I would run errands mostly, and do anything my manager, who reported directly to Mr. Epstein, wanted me to do. So say the gardener calls out sick one day, I would be mowing the lawn in his place. I was sort of a floating general helper. Inevitably, I ran into Mr. Epstein now and then. He was always very personable, enthusiastic. I had heard about his original court case, and the rumors and everything, but just meeting this guy made me feel like it was a lie, because he seemed so kind and genuine. I thought he really was this hotshot money man, like a Bruce Wayne or a Tony Stark kind of figure. And I think, ultimately, that's how he wanted us all to see him. His god complex was, to say the least, very developed. Eventually, I was trusted with bigger jobs. I think I got a good reputation because I cleaned one of Mr. Epstein's bedrooms one day. There was, to my dismay, a mixture of poop and cum on the bed sheets. I dealt with it professionally and I didn't say anything. I knew by then, someone was always watching. There are cameras in almost every single room, save Mr. Epstein's private office and regular bedroom. He had several bedrooms, but one was his favorite, I guess. I never mentioned it to anyone, but I still got a thank you from my manager for being discreet. One day, I was asked to go pick up a monsieur from a bus station. I didn't ask her age, I knew better, but she couldn't have been older than 16. I got a really bad feeling in my stomach, because at this point, denying Mr. Epstein's taste would be borderline irrational. I did my job though. I took her to his house, and a few hours later, I took her back to the bus stop. She was crying. I didn't talk to her about it. A few weeks later, I did it again. Now, my manager tells me that Mr. Epstein would like me to take over all his various pickup and drop-offs. They called it cutie duty. Freaking barf. But it was more than just girls. I would pick up drugs and other assorted packages, most of which I had no idea the contents. But as far as I was concerned, the less I knew the better. I was getting paid very well for the amount of work I was doing. In a given day, I would spend 3, maybe 4 hours doing anything that could be considered work. The rest of the time, I either sat in the car browsing 4chan on my phone, or inside pretending like I was rich, and this was my house. For this, I was being paid $75,000 a year, more than I'd ever even hoped to make in my whole life. When I took over doing most of the driving, it went up to 115. Every time my job became more illegal, the money would get better. That's his tactic. He knows that people will do just about anything for the right price. I just want people to know, I guess. Call it a public confession because I'm guilty. I guess I don't care that much because I'm gonna be dead. I've done things I can't forgive myself for, and I think they'll have me killed anyway. I'm going to do it on my terms. Anyway, Mr. Epstein is very shrewd. He pays you a lot, but not enough for the stuff he has you do, and he tries to find the absolute least amount he can pay you to keep you doing it. For me, disgracefully, That was around $150,000. I stayed on cutie duty for about 4 months, and then Mr. Epstein took a trip abroad, and he loaned me out to another family, the Romneys. Now, keep in mind, I never met Mitch Romney, and I don't think I even worked for him. I just worked for the family. I reported to an employment manager as usual. I was tasked with driving the young man named Cole around wherever he wanted. Cole was probably about 22, and already his license has been suspended for drunk driving. He lived in a huge house in the middle of nowhere outside Boulder, Colorado. Man, it was beautiful. If I could have stayed there forever, I would have. I suspect it was a vacation cabin, mansion, owned by his parents. But I digress. Every weekend we would drive into the city, he would get blackout drunk, find a woman or a prostitute, and I'd take us back home. Cole was a piece of total poop. If you remember Scumbag Steve, just imagine if Steve's parents were multi-millionaires, if not billionaires, and you get the idea. So one Sunday morning, after a typical Saturday night, I report for our duty 8 a.m. sharp, knowing dang well that Cole isn't going to drag his butt out of bed until at least 3 p.m. Here he comes, hobbling down the driveway, in his socks to my car. He usually texts when he's up, and I come inside and start cleaning up his messes. No text today. He comes over to the car as I'm stepping out. He says, hey buddy, we kinda got a problem, but it's not that big of a deal, okay? Okay, what? Let's see it. We go inside, upstairs in his bedroom. His girl from last night is laying face up, and her open mouth is pulled with vomit. She is most definitely dead. As far as I can tell, she overdosed on whatever combination of prescription drugs they were doing. Passed out, puked, then suffocated on her own vomit. I am absolutely flipping out, and I've got my phone out, dialing 911. Cole slaps it out of my hand and tells me hold on. He says he can't get in trouble because it would look bad on his family. I said, Cole, you've already been getting in trouble. He says he knows, just not this kind of trouble. He says I'll get a big bonus if I just deal with it myself. Now, I'm way out in the middle of nowhere, and the implication of day one in my employment in this circle has been that if I mess up, I might suffer harsh consequences. I know what I did here is wrong. I know that, and I am so sorry. I asked him what I'm supposed to do. He says, just wait. He gets a different phone out of a drawer and starts making calls. After a few minutes, I'm waiting in the hallway. He's casually pacing around the corpse. He gives me GPS coordinates for a little spot off 111, out in the mountains. I'm supposed to wrap up her body, take her there, and drop her off. He said there would be guys waiting there to take her. It's a long drive, and I don't look forward to it one bit. I wrap her up in his comforter. He stops me. Bro, he said. Bro, not that blanket. That's like the softest blanket in the world, dude. No way. And he gets me a different blanket from the closet. Freaking real gentleman Cole was. He's got an F-150 at the property used for landscaping work. I put her body in the bed with a tarp on the top, and then I fill the rest in with black landscaping supplies, fertilizer, tools, etc. I try to make it look really natural and boring. I'm losing my mind. I can't believe I'm actually doing this, but he's promising me if I get busted, I'll have the best lawyers money can buy. And I believe him. She's dead already anyway, and it's unlikely he would even get into real legal trouble. Just bad press. So what's the difference? The whole time driving, I'm just sweating through my clothes. I have to stop twice to puke. When I get there's a little dirt spot you could pull off into. And sure enough, there's a big black SUV and a Jeep with off-road tires. I'm not just going to assume these are the body people. So I stop, get out, and approach the SUV. The window rolls down and there's a woman who's probably in her 50s and a big guy driving. I don't know what to say, so I'm just kinda like, how's it going? Feeling like a complete freaking idiot. She makes a call and describes me to the person on the phone. Then she puts it down and says, we're the ones you're looking for. Is it under all that stuff under the bed? I said, yeah, do you need help? She says, no, take a break. So I walk into the trees a little bit and smoke a cigarette or two. They've got her out and put her into the Jeep within about 5 minutes. The woman tells me to drive, wait 15 minutes before I leave, then they pull out and drive away. The Jeep drives further into the woods, maybe about 7 minutes, and I leave. I got a text later telling me not ever to leave early again. It was from a blocked number. So when I get back to the house, Cole is sitting at the kitchen table eating a massive bowl of Fruit Loops with a big serving spoon, watching Love and Hip Hop. This man is like a child, and he hasn't even gotten dressed yet. He asks me to wash his blanket and sheets. I do it. We got really drunk that night, and Cole tells me this has happened twice before, and it's always fine. He says he's like Scarface and stuff. I hate him. The remaining few months go by without any incident, and he gets his license back, freeing me at last. Mr. Epstein doesn't need me at the time, but I do get referred to as a reliable driver to the bigwigs at Def Jam Records, who assigned me to work on Rihanna's crew, while she promoted Talk That Talk, at the time of her 6th and newest album. I've never met Miss Rihanna in person, just in passing now and then, but I found this job to agree with me a lot better than the others. I drove a van stacked with promotional gear from city to city while she toured. A few times I was sent to pick up Molly, and was taught to use the test strips to test for purity. If it was ever not pure, I was supposed to walk away, but it was always pure. There are circles within circles of connections. I believe there's an entire shadow economy strictly for the rich and famous, to get their rocks off collectively. One thing I learned about Rihanna is that she enjoys young females as well. I was sent to pick up 2 young girls and bring them to the hotel room. Of course, I was met outside the door by someone more important than me. This struck me as odd, because as far as I understood, Rihanna is not like a billionaire like Epstein, but she was even more insulated and protected than he was. I'm sure a lot of that has to do with just personal choices regarding security, but I get the picture of this world. Influence and money both equal power, and Rihanna, especially in 2011-2012, was highly influential. All I had to do was mention her name, and girls would get in the cars, just like that. So the most noteworthy thing that happened while working at Def Jam is when Rihanna had a party to celebrate the end of her tour. Everybody was there. I mean, all the top pop stars were there. Jonas Brothers, Lady Gaga, Justin Bieber, even a few old heads like Elton John and some actors. I noticed John Travolta for sure, Seth Rogen, Emma Stone, Bradley Cooper, to name a few. For this party I was, of course, tasked with getting entertainment. They wanted as young as they could get, and as many as I could get. Ostensibly, they were being hired to be waitstaff, valet drivers, etc. But the plan was to switch it up on them when they actually get there. Give them drugs, money, whatever they need to do what they want them to do, which was essentially to be all expenses paid prostitutes for whoever wanted them. That part, thankfully, was not my job. I'm just a piece of poop who tricked them into going. I picked up 5 young girls from a mall, a couple of teenage boys I found walking around the road, and then I got a hold of an escort company to fill it out and make it an even dozen. Those ones from the escort company were not underage, and I was severely chastised for it. My manager basically asked if I ever wanted to work again. I said yes. He said, then act like you've got some goddamn sense. I didn't make this mistake again. After the tour ended, I was just on my own for a month or so. I rented a house near Tulsa and basically isolated my entire time. I was starting to get ideas in my head about going to trade school or something when I was called back to work for Mr. Epstein again. At this point, I've developed a bad coke habit, of which I have only been sober for a few months to this day. I needed something to make me do it. Coke makes you feel numb, in a way not much else does. And believe me, I've tried just about everything. There are research chemicals no one has even heard of that get traded around these circles. When I came back to work for Mr. Epstein on his island, I was going through an 8-ball every day or two. I binge drank at night, but I had to keep focused during the day. The coke wired me up, the liquor brought me back down. That's the only way mentally I could really cope with what's happening. I was flown to his now infamous island to be one of the regular staff. Essentially, I lived on this island for free while getting paid to maintain the grounds and keep the buildings up. When Mr. Epstein was there, obviously, he would bring his own entertainment. So I didn't have to do that. I thought, this sounds like a freaking fantastic deal. Island paradise, great wages, not much real work, count me in. Out of all my sins, I believe sloth is the most damaging one I indulge in. I always look for the easy dollar, and that's why I'm prey for people like this. Now, first of all, this island is like paradise on earth. It's always a comfortable temperature, the rains are breathtakingly beautiful, and the architecture and the decor of the houses are exquisite. Yes, the bathhouse is really creepy. The fake doors are there to confuse the flyby surveillance, if anyone was wondering. The other regular staff there were hard to get along with. They were all creeps, and I mean capital C freaking creeps. Made me wonder about myself, honestly, that I'm put here with them. They all joked about getting Mr. Epstein's leftovers, and the talk was constantly about when Mr. Epstein was going to visit his island again, when we would bring important people, world leaders, CEOs, etc. I and most of the staff were kept totally out of sight. We weren't allowed to work in an area unless we knew it was empty. Only his most trusted employees could actually be in the building with him, and high-powered friends. Sometimes though, it would just be the family and things would be more relaxed. I passed by his office once, carrying some garbage, when he beckoned me inside. He asked me my name, and I told him. He offered me a seat. I took it. You don't get far in this business saying no. He began to talk to me. He looked really stressed. He asked me how anything that feels good could be bad. He had a big painting of Oscar Wilde, and considered him a personal hero. He began to explain hedonism to me, and asked me if I understood. Of course, I said. Who doesn't like fun? Lots of people, he said. Lots of people. Then he let me go about my duties. I messed up really bad one evening, and entered one of the maintenance sheds to return some tools, and saw a sweaty, pale back of a large man, hunched over and thrusting. He had a tattoo of Nixon on his back, and he was wearing a bull's head mask. He was screwing one of the regular staff members' mouths. He turns to me, and I'm just standing there in shock, and he says quite angrily, "Do you mind?" And I slam the door shut. As I'm closing the door, I get a glimpse of my coworker's face, and he's crying. I googled Nixon back tattoo, and later realized that man was Roger Stone, who I'd never even heard of up to that point. I knew I was in deep trouble. The next day, and for 2 weeks after, I got all the worst jobs. Trash pickup, cleaning toilets, scrubbing these boats. It freaking sucked, but I kept my mouth shut anyways. As far as I understood, my pay had not been cut whatsoever. I'll do the terrible jobs where I'm by myself, because at least, hey, I'm by myself. That was fine by me. Anyways, Things started getting really tense on the island at that point. People started making little comments about me being nosy, or about minding my own business. I was starting to get worried, and I was branded a troublemaker, which you don't want to be. Things turn very quickly in this business. That's how they've kept a lid on it for so long. Any small mistake, and you're out. Most people are let go with NDAs, and the understanding that they'll be watched the rest of their lives, which ultimately is how I got out as well. After Epstein died, they cut me loose. I guess they figured since he was dead, nothing I knew would even matter. They're probably right, honestly. It probably won't matter anyways. But the rest of my time on the island was pure terror. I was just waiting to be taken away, or worse. Never happened, but I was really scared. I saw a few of their weird plays they would do around the bathhouse. Mr. Epstein had a little portable stage he would get set up. He would wear the bullhead I saw Mr. Stone wearing, and give a big speech about what he called freedom. He would say this island is the only free place in the whole world, where everyone on it can do whatever they want. BS, not your employees, not the children you bring here, total BS. Everyone would cheer. They'd get up and do a sort of conga line with tiki torches. Really cringy old rich people stuff, and go into the bathhouse. There's a trapdoor under the floor that has not been reported in any of the investigation photos that I've seen, which lead to what they call the chamber. And it's essentially a bondage dungeon. I don't know what happened in there, and I never want to know. I stayed as far away as possible from that bathhouse as I could. So anyway, I eventually got my reputation for the most part back, into good graces, and I was working in the main houses again. One time, I was helping in the kitchen. I don't know if the chef was messing with me, I hope so, but he was separating what looked like to be a torso of a very young, skinned pig. It had been roasted and was chopped into quarters, the ribs to be served that evening and the rest broken down for soups and casseroles. I said jokingly, "It looks like a little kid." He just gave me this awful, dead-eyed look for a second, and then said, "Watch it." I worked on that island for about a year, in 2013 and 2014. Mr. Epstein chose me and 2 other trusted employees from the island to come with him to a winter retreat in the Swiss Alps. He owned a small, billionaire's small mind, cabin, again, mansion, there, and wanted people he knew could be trusted, because most of the staff would be local hires. Our job on the surface was to help manage all the employees, like supervisors basically, but the unspoken task would be keeping everyone either in the dark or quiet. Mr. Epstein had a real fondness for plump, young Swiss blondes, and the Swiss, as he would explain, have a very progressive idea regarding the age of consent. He viewed this more as a relaxed way to do what he does. More casual. Part of the thrill for these people, I think, is in fact that it is illegal, and they can get into big trouble. When they go to places that are more friendly with the idea of an older man messing with a 15-year-old, it's to take a break, so to speak. The Alps themselves, wow. Wow. I've been all over the United States, and nothing in this country compares to Europe in terms of sheer beauty. Sometimes, early in the morning, when I'd come out of my cabin and stretch, looking at the trees, smelling the crisp, clean air, just for a minute, I'd forget what I've done, and what I'm doing. When it came back to me, I'd have to fight back tears. I want those mountains to be the last thing I think about before I die. So I've not been there 3 days when, while me and the 2 from the island are doing bumps of coke off the butter knives in the lower garage, a boy, maybe 14, skinny, blonde, pale, and naked, comes to the doorway right towards us. He's speaking French, but I think I got a gist of what he was saying. He was asking for help. He looked hysterical. Immediately, my 2 friends were out of there, and I shouldn't have been far behind. I told him, calm down, it's okay, I'm gonna help you. I just wanted him to feel better. This took me maybe 30 seconds before one of the nannies came in. He looked at her confused, and I get the picture. He was trying to decide if she could be trusted. She couldn't. She shushed him and put a jacket over him and took his hand. She was speaking French as well. It sounded like a mother consoling a frightened child. She let him back into the house, and I did not see him again. I never mentioned it to anyone, and nobody ever mentioned it to me. During my last couple of weeks there, I witnessed at first hand the murder of an independent journalist. I don't think he was actually a journalist. I think he had maybe a blog or a YouTube channel, and I don't know his name, so I don't think he's anyone with any real connections. He was one of the local hires, a dishwasher, but he was seen with his cell phone out, possibly recording. Me and the other 2 from the island were asked to go check it out. So we go get the guy and ask him to empty his pockets. Sure enough, he's got a phone. We told him to unlock it. He wouldn't. One of the other guys made a call, came back, and slugged him directly in the nose. I think he broke it, because there was blood just pouring out of it and the guy started screaming. I don't think he'd ever been hit before, but me and the other guy held him down. Screw it, I'll say their names. It was Daniel Robinson from South Florida and Marcus Harper from Nevada. Marcus and I were holding down Daniel. And Daniel punched him again and told him to unlock his phone. He complied this time, and sure enough, there were pictures and videos from inside the house. We knew he hadn't sent anything out because only wired connections worked there. I guess they had signal jammers or something, or maybe because it was just so remote. I don't know. Anyway, Daniel makes another call and tells us to take him out inside the woods. I think we're just gonna threaten him and make him sign an NDA, but Daniel took off his belt and strangled him to death. We had to put his body up in an outbuilding because the ground was frozen. We put him through a wood chipper and burned everything to ash. There were bits of charred bone left over when I swept it all up into a trash bag and threw it out into the regular garbage. This, above anything else, I feel most guilty for. After that, if I wasn't in before, I was definitely in now. Me, Marcus, and Daniel, the three freaking stooges from HE hockey sticks. Daniel had been in the military, and I think he had a few screws loose because he'd always had a temper. He became the go-to guy for that really dirty stuff. I started working for Mr. Epstein directly after this. He would confide in me sometimes, when he was very high, about how nothing really makes him feel good enough. He told me once that he hasn't felt happy in years. I wish I had the stones to tell him that the life he was living is only bringing him down. For a brief moment, I felt empathy for this man. I think that, too, this was part of his game though. I don't think he ever had a single genuine feeling in his life outside of a sexual gratitude. He never mentioned the journalist to me. It was like it never happened, but we both knew that was the reason why I was now working directly for him. Listen, I think I've said all about our character right now. I'm going to get a bottle of something before the stores close. If this thread is still here in a few hours, I'll answer questions and tell some more stories. Only 8 hours after this user's last post, Giselle Maxwell was captured hiding out in New Hampshire. What do you guys think? Could this possibly be her? Or is it maybe one of his other accomplices that probably gave her away and probably gave away other details as well? This person's story seems very convincing, like the tattoo in the back of Roger Stone's back, along with Rihanna liking young girls, and post histories in the past of young girls saying that they got to hang out with Rihanna for a couple days. So many things add up in this story, and 4chan is always one of the places where stuff like this comes out. If it's true, I think we'll know soon. If it's not, this is probably one of the most elaborate hoaxes around this quote-unquote conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy anymore because we all know. Anyways, let me know what you guys think down in the comments about this entire story, or if you have any information or anything that I didn't consider while thinking about this. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I know this video will not be monetized. See you next time.